Well, we didn't have gendered pronouns in our language. There are many terms that are very gendered we didn't have. And so I think that just points to a different way of looking at the world, which of course that Māori worldview, it says we are all just people. A lot of my life, a lot of my research has been focused on promoting and advocating for our takatapui whānau. That's how I identify, and acknowledging all the other identities of Māori who want to use terms that are more appropriate for them, for who they are, but also from their own iwi. People who are anti-takatapui, who are anti-trans, anything different from them or what they can't control, they have always been there. It's just maybe at this stage we're hearing about it a lot more, we're seeing a lot more, but all it is reflecting what's been the life that many of our whānau have experienced for a very long time. So once we can shine a light on that, we can face it, we can react to it, we can do something about it. And in fact, I think we must stamp it out. It is not acceptable to tell someone who they are. It disrespects their atua, it disrespects their tūpuna, but most importantly, the person's right, their own manaake, to say this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be in the world.
Commonly known that I have some very strong views on gender pronouns in New Zealand, but specifically when referencing it to a Te Ao Māori view. The sensationalised aspect of why we use pronouns in today's society, o he katoa ngā kōrero, I think that's my view, is that we've got it wrong. Are we translating English colonial construct, Western words, to suit into Te Reo Māori, to suit the tick box process? That's a big issue, I think, if we're applying a Te Ao Māori view to using pronouns. In the enlightened years, I like to call them, pos I au e tupu ana, i whakakoringia i au ki taku ao Māori. And I think because of the way I was born and brought into this world being so traumatic, no one quite understood what was happening, let alone my own whānau hapu and iwi. And so why it's important now for me is that society are more worried about what we are as opposed to who we are. He Māori ahau I te tuatahi. And I think that's the kōrero that people need to sink into their brains, into their everything about worrying about who you are first rather than what you are. Because that's a Western construct, placing us into a category, siloing us and further disconnecting us from whakapapa.
Gendered pronouns and being able to choose how people respond to you and engage with you is important, especially in this age where gender affirming care is either unsafe, illegal, or really inaccessible for our whānau. Language is typically universally free and easy to understand by most communities, and so by having that autonomy over something as little as how people refer to you, I feel saves lives in and of itself, and restores that mana motiake, especially to a rangatahi navigating queerness and e takatapuitanga. I also acknowledge that it may be a relatively new concept within Te Ao Māori. There can be confusion with our kaumātua nā kuia or elder Māori whānau, and understanding the importance of it. So from all sides, I see it being beneficial to the health and well-being of a rangatahi, but I can also understand and sympathise with the confusion from a Te Ao Māori point of view.
I guess within the contemporary society it is quite important, especially to those who feel the need or the importance for pronouns to help one individual identify themselves within interactions, daily interactions. Mōku ake, even though I am someone who uses, I guess, non-traditional gender pronouns, I don't see the importance behind it. It's more ko te tangata tā tātou aro tuatahi. I a tātou e tūtaki ana ki ngā tāngata. Ko taku ingoa te tuatahi he Māori ake nei te aro, koira te aronga matua māku. He oi ki ētahi atu, it's quite important to feel acknowledged, I guess, is the importance for them.
Kia kōrero Māori atu ahau, hei whakautu tēnei pātai. Me mea tātou ka whakaaro ki ngā tūpau i te reo Māori, kaore he here ki te ira, ki te ia rānei o te tangata. Kaore tohua te ira rānei o te tangata, ko au, ko koe, ko ia, ko māu, ko tāua, ko kōrewa, ko rāua. Ko mātou, ko tātou, ko rātou, ko koutou, kaore he here, kaore he aha rānei e tohu ana i te ia, i te ira rānei o te tangata. So when we think about our pronouns in te reo, and the way we identify who they are, who I am, who you are, who we are, and those words that we use, there's nothing there to identify or to show gender.
Pronouns, what I see with our rangatahi today, all across the world actually, is it's a rejection of the colonial binary that has been imposed upon the world, and particularly acknowledging Indigenous peoples, iwi take, huri noi te ao katoa, as ira tangata, as people, as humans. We have many facets to us, and that it was a Christian-driven philosophy or perspective that wanted to nail us into these very narrow identities, and that for Indigenous peoples we've had a far superior understanding, that we've never had that restriction, and so it's just about loving our whānau for who they are.
I think gender pronouns in today's society, the respect for self-determination and self-definition is secured within an Indigenous framework through the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It doesn't come out of it, but it is secured by it, and that's because it's inherent in our Indigenous world. And so we see it as a part of our decolonisation process. And so respecting people's right to define themselves, to determine, their experience in this world is a part of respecting their indigeneity. So I do see it as an Indigenous concept, as an important part of our decolonisation. It's a part of our evolution as a society. We're always trying to grow and to better ourselves, and a part of this pathway of bettering ourselves is coming to appreciate people's rights and how they define themselves, and how they determine their pathways in this world.
It's the same saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It's the same adaptation, I think, in terms of what our cultural significance to existence is. And I know that in te reo Māori and how I grew up listening and absorbing te reo Māori, there was nothing in the language in my days that, singled people out or singled any one gender out. Ko tātou tērā.
Alongside this anti-queer, anti-LGBTQ+, anti-takatapui hate that we see, we often refer to the climate crisis, us being a part of the whenua and the whenua being a part of us. And so when we commit to progressing these movements with the intention of healing our people, I find that just being Māori will help navigate these spaces. I find that with the extra hate that we're seeing, especially in the media, with the recent paru pausi pāka coming to Aotearoa, it's motivated many rangatahi to actually double down and reconnect tenfold with te taha Māori, with takatapuitanga, with motiatea, with getting involved in takatapui communities, arts activations, exhibitions, especially following Pride Month up here in Tāmaki Makaurau.
Sometimes our own people can't give us the safe space that we need, and that's evident in the past. We've had a lot of whānau who are different from the norm be casted out for whatever reason, and they've had to find their own whānau within the cities or within their own communities, and that's good for them. Engari, me hoki mai ki te ao Māori ki tō ake. Tūranga waiwai, kia tino hāne ane o te noho, kia whakatangata i a koe anō ki tō ao Māori. Mā reira pia e tū kaha ai koe, tū mai ki roto I tēnei ao hurihuri. But my approach is more targeting the whānau and saying, please love us the same, hold us the same. And that kōrero has been passed around previously by also our Polynesian whānau, to love us the same and hold us the same. How do we best cater to looking after our people from all forms of walks of life, but this idea that being LGBTQI Māori is not whakaaro Māori, that in itself is a colonial mindset.
It's not for you to impose your idea of what their pathway is through this world.
That wasn't given by you, that was determined by their whakapapa, by our atua, is what determines people's pathway through this world. So I just think it's the height of arrogance and colonialism as well, and colonial ideas to impose upon somebody else your idea of who they are and their pathway through this world. There's the importance, I believe, of respecting people's identity, which is how I understand, their pronouns. This is how people are identifying themselves. So we need to respect that in order to respect te tapu o te tangata.
We identify ourselves by connecting ourselves to people and to places, and that's how we connect to each other, through whakapapa, and that's what is the most important thing. We're always, taught from a young age how to say those things, how to get up and express who you are by connecting yourself to people and to place, your maunga, your awa, your iwi, your marae. So I think that's where the focus is for us.
I'm still learning a lot from a rangatira in the Takatapui space. I'm excited to one day be able to stand in that confidence, in that mātauranga, knowing all these pakiwaitara off the back of my head, and being able to stand confidently and explain my footing in this complicated space. It feels like my tūpuna are sending me on this one direction, and hopefully one day I'll be able to answer that pātai with the context and mana that it deserves. Aye.